Okay, we ready? Well, let's go. Before we get started, I want to talk to you for a second. Father to father, man to man. There's a moment every dad remembers. The doctor looks at you and he says the words, "It's a girl." And there's like something inside of you that shifts. It's like God looks deep into your soul and he says to you, "I am now entrusting you with one of my greatest masterpieces." And in that moment, you're no longer just a man. You're not even just a father. You become something deeper, something sacred. You have now become a girl dad. And with that title comes an honor and a weight only few men on this earth truly understand. You weren't given your children by accident. God chose you specifically to be their father. Welcome back to the Dad on Purpose podcast presented by Daddy Up, where we lean into the hard conversations, the sacred responsibilities, and the calling that God has placed on us as fathers. Today, if you haven't been able to tell already, we're talking about something powerful, something emotional, something holy. Today, we're talking about what it means to be a girl dad and why this role carries a purpose deeper than we often realize. I remember when my wife and I were about to have our third child, or right after we had our second. We had two girls to start with. And I remember there being all these questions from everybody, who knew that we had kids, who would say, "Hey man, what's up? You gonna go for that third? You gonna go for your boy? You gonna try to get your boy?" And my answer was standard of like, yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, I gotta get my boy, right? Because it seems to be like this false idea that every father needs to have a son, right? Like the circle's not complete until a father has a son that he can raise into a man. And I fell into the same trap. I used to think, I got to have a son. I got to be able to teach him how to play sports and how to, open up the door for women and to be a good man and just, all the things that come along with being a father to a son. I felt like I needed that for whatever reason. But the truth of the matter is that daughters are for fathers and sons are for mothers. And you don't realize that until you're raising both of them. But I promise you, again, I'm going to say it. Daughters are for fathers and sons are for mothers. So I want to start with pride, right? Because being a girl dad, it hits different. There's so much pride in the way that, she grabs your finger with her whole hand. There's pride in the way she curls up on your chest and she falls asleep. There's pride in the way she looks at you like you hung the moon. And it's the kind of pride that it honestly it rewires a man. It softens him, it strengthens him, it changes him. You realize that you're not just raising a little girl. You're now shaping a future woman, a future leader, a future world changer. And there's a lot of pressure that gets put on your shoulders when you start to understand the importance that you now have of raising a daughter and being the image that she is going to pull from for what a man is supposed to be. Now, studies do show that that daughters with active, loving fathers have higher self-esteem, stronger mental health, and healthier relationships throughout life. 82% of research confirm a father's involvement directly boosts a child's emotional, social, and academic well-being. Let me say that again. 82% of research studies confirm a father's involvement directly boosts a child's emotional, social, and academic well-being. So being active, being present when you're a father raising a daughter has far-reaching effects that you could almost never really truly understand. But the thing about it is that your presence isn't optional. All right. It is not optional. It's critical. It's generational. But pride is only the beginning because it gets so much deeper. Because the moment you realize how deeply she depends on you, something else settles into your heart: responsibility. And that, my friends, is where the real work begins. Now, your daughter, she sees the world through your eyes before she sees it through her own. There's a few things that you have to understand about being a father. One is that your love becomes her safety. Your voice becomes her inner voice. Your approval becomes her confidence. Your presence becomes, like I said earlier, her definition of love. She learns boundaries by watching the way you treat her mom. She learns self-worth by how you speak to her. She learns resilience by watching how you handle pressure. She learns what love feels like from the way that you show up. You are her first image of masculinity. And because of that, you are now setting the standard for every man she will ever meet. And once you recognize the influence that you have on her identity, you start to see the world differently. You start to see all the ways it can shape her and all the ways it can hurt her, which for a father is a hard pill to swallow. Now, that brings us to something fathers don't nearly talk about, and that's how the world is not built for her. Now, let's be honest. The world your daughter is stepping into, like I said, was not built with her best interest in mind. We can talk about safety, for instance, right? Safety is there's a different reality for girls. Now, as men, we move through the world with a freedom that our daughters may never fully have, right? We don't think twice about walking alone at night. We don't grip keys between our fingers, like in case somebody attacks us. We don't check over our shoulders 5 times because I promise you, try me, right? As a man, try me and find out. I just don't have that fear that most women and that most girls carry. But our daughters, they will. Now, example, right? Your daughter may be 16, pumping gas, and she's already hyper aware of a man staring too long. Not because she's paranoid, right? But because the world hasn't always protected girls. And we know that to be true. And that's why it's our job to step in and be that protection. All right. Number two, expectations. She must be enough, but she can't be too much. Your daughter's going to hear things like, don't be too emotional, don't be too confident, don't be too ambitious, don't be too quiet, which is misleading and confusing, right? Like the world gives boys room to grow, but it gives girls a box that they have to fit into. So right off the bat, we know that that's not fair, but we also know as men that that's true. That's 100% true. Now, here's an example, right? She may speak up in class and be labeled as bossy, while the boy says the same thing and he gets praised as being what? A leader. So again, the double standard is so evident, it's so clear. And that's another thing that we have to understand about raising a girl is that that double standard is something that although we can't change it, we have to be so aware of it to make sure that we're raising our daughters properly. Number three, visibility. She's going to work twice as hard to be seen, right? In many spaces, she'll have to prove herself before she's accepted. An example, she might be the smartest person in a meeting and still get talked over by someone who didn't prepare half as much. And again, we know this to be true. Because how many times as men do we have to prove ourselves before we're accepted? Whether it be in a corporate setting, whether it be a sport, whatever it is. Men are kind of just there's an exception, not an exception in the sense of, well, you guys know what I'm talking about. Men are accepted without having to always prove themselves first. But for women, it does not work like that. They've got to show their worth before their worth is valued, which to me, again, is unfair. It's just not right. Appearance. The world judges her before it knows her. Girls are judged by appearance long before they're valued for character, right? Because again, what do we look at? The appearance speaks first. We don't look at the character of the woman. How does she look? Is she this? Is she that? Is she whatever it may be, and whatever the reasons may be? That's just again, it's 100% true. That appearance is it's the first thing that's taken into account when it comes to women, which is, again, not fair. But an example, again, she might post an innocent photo online, right? And immediately receive comments critiquing her body instead of praising her accomplishments. Because as men and just as a society in general, that's just what we do. We don't look at a woman and what she's accomplished and her value inside and all these other things first. We will eventually get there, but the first thing that we look at is her looks, which, again, if you're noticing the theme here, is not fair. Number 5, emotional bias. She'll be labeled for feeling what men are allowed to feel. Now, this one hits hard, so I'm going to say this one again. She will be labeled for feeling what men are allowed to feel. A stressed man is seen as what? Hardworking, right? If you see a man and he's stressed out, oh, he must be busting his ass for something. But a stressed woman is labeled as dramatic. A firm man is respected. A firm woman is called what? Well, she's difficult. We don't want to deal with her. She stands on her values. We don't want to deal with that. She's difficult to deal with. Your daughter may express a valid emotion and be dismissed as overreacting. Now, I know for myself, again, this is a podcast that's about truth and about honesty. And I know that myself, I've done that throughout time, right? Throughout my time on this planet. You look at a woman and they're going through what they're going through. Oh, she's overreacting. She's tripping. She doesn't, that there's no, it's unnecessary to act like that. But all she's doing is expressing the same emotion that we as men express. But when we express it, it's okay. It's oh man, he's tough. He's going through something. It's this, it's that. But when a woman does it, she's overreacting. She's emotional. She's crazy. She's out of control. It's just not fair. Again, part of the theme here. Number 6, the over-sexualization, where I promise you, this world, it comes for these girls early. Girls are targeted younger, sexualized younger, they're pressured younger, and they are most certainly tested younger. An example, your daughter may be 12 and already dealing with comments from men who should never be looking at her. And I'm going to give you a true life, true world example of that. A couple months ago, I'm going to a concert with my 12 and my 14-year-old daughter. And before the concert, when we're on the way, we stop, just to get some snacks or something for the ride. And we're walking into the convenience store, and there's a group of men, maybe like 4 or 5 guys, had just got off work, that you could tell because they're all in their dirty clothes. And they're older men. And I caught one of them staring a little bit too long. And everything inside of me, like this need to defend and to make sure that nobody is looking at mine like that, it kicked in immediately. And I was about 2 seconds off of his ass and saying something to him like, you staring a little bit too long. You want to look at something, look at me. But I didn't. I held it back. Number 1, because I just didn't want to get into I didn't know where it was going to go, right? Had no idea. I'm not worried about getting into it with him because, again, I can protect myself. But do I want to show my daughters that? Do I want to put them in a position where they have to see their father take it to whatever level it was going to be taken to in order to protect them? Yes and no, right? Like, I don't necessarily know if they need to see that side of me. But also, I told myself, I was like, he's got about 5 more seconds and something's going to get said. And he turned his eyes away. But I promise you, when we walked in that store, I was on him. My eyes were on him the entire time. And I said, if he looks one time, we there. So I promise you that over-sexualization, it's real. You had a 30, 40-year-old man looking at a 12 and 14-year-old girl for a little bit too long than what he should have. And I could feel it. And that's real. And that's where that feeling, that want and that need to protect really kicks in. Now, this is why the role of a father, especially a girl dad, is not just important, but it's urgent. Because you're not just raising a little girl. Like I said earlier, you're raising a woman who needs to know she's already enough in God's eyes, even when the world tries to convince her otherwise. But there's battles that we have to face as men when we're raising a girl. So being a girl dad isn't just bows and tea parties, right? Like I said, it's carrying battles that nobody is ever going to see. For example, the fear of not being enough, right? Like every father has had that moment. Can I guide her through everything she'll face? I know that one of my biggest fears as a father is not being there to protect, whether it's a physical protection, whether it's an emotional protection from some sort of heartbreak, whatever it is, I don't want them to feel it. I know that it's necessary and I know that they're going to have to eventually deal with it, but I want to make sure that I'm there to be that rock that they can lean on. And the fear that I may not be for whatever reason, maybe I'm just not physically there, or maybe she doesn't feel comfortable enough to come and talk to me about the emotional issue. It's a serious fear that I know that I face and I assume a lot of other fathers face. So that fear of not being enough is a battle that we definitely deal with. The pressure to protect, right? Just like I said a couple minutes ago, there was the pressure for me to protect my daughters when I saw this old man staring at her longer than he should have, right? You see danger differently when you have a daughter. My daughters had no idea there was a guy staring at them. They had no idea, but I saw it. I could feel it. My spidey senses were tingling, and I knew what was going on. So that pressure to protect it's big. And again, the battle of do I or don't I? Do I take it to a level where it may end up going, or don't I? There's that when keeping it real goes wrong fear, right? And I may keep it real by punching this dude in his mouth for looking at my daughters too long. And now I may be putting handcuffs in front of my daughter for overreacting and not handling the situation in a smart, thoughtful manner. So there's that battle that we have to deal with. The fear of repeating your father's mistakes, right? Like you have to understand that you are building a blueprint from scratch. But I feel like it's very easy to slip in to what we have already seen growing up ourselves, right? Like I know that I told myself when I became a father, I wasn't going to be my dad. But there's times throughout my time as a father when I have slipped into being my dad and just doing things the same way that he did. So you have to understand that the fear of repeating your father's mistakes is serious, but you have to do it your way. 4, fighting her future pain. Like I said earlier, you want to protect her from heartbreak she doesn't even know exists yet, but you're not going to be able to. And that's a battle that as men we just have to deal with. We have to accept and we have to be able to conquer and understand that we're not going to be able to protect her from everything. And part of understanding that and part of accepting it is to know that heartbreak is going to shape her just the same way that we father her is going to shape her. There are some necessary evils that our children and that our daughters more specifically are going to have to deal with. We don't want them to, but they're going to have to deal with it because that's where growth comes from. So fighting that future pain is something that we definitely deal with. And then the legacy battle, right? Where you realize that everything that you do ripples into her future. And in that comes the fear of making a mistake. But we are undoubtedly going to make mistakes with our daughters, with our children in general. We are going to mess them up. It's part of the process. But you fight it because we want to make sure that everything that we do leads to a better future for them and for her. But we just may not be able to get there. Now, if you've ever felt that pressure, right, that fear, that weight, I promise you, you're not alone, right? That tension is actually part of your calling. And God doesn't just leave you to carry it by yourself. So I want to remind you of something. Like I've said throughout this podcast, God did not accidentally make you a girl dad. He chose you. He trusted you. He equipped you. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4 says, Fathers, bring them up in the instruction of the Lord. Psalm 127 says, Children are a heritage, a reward from God. Your daughter is one of God's arrows, and you are the bow. Use yourself in that manner, right? Be the bow that's going to point her in the right direction and let her go. Let her pierce through life like an arrow to eventually hit the target that she's intended to hit. And then once you understand God's design, you start to see that raising a daughter is not something that you try to survive, but it's something you grow into. One intentional choice at a time. I want to say that again because that's powerful. And that once you understand God's design, you start to see raising a daughter not as something that you try to survive, but as something you grow into, one intentional choice at a time. So, what does your daughter need from you? Right? Because there's a lot of things that they need. So, we're going to cover a couple here. Number one is your voice. Your words become her confidence, right? Your presence. Daughters with engaged fathers outperform their peers in almost every category. Let me say that again for the fathers who feel the pressure of fatherhood and allow it to crumble them. Your presence is important. It is vital. Daughters with engaged fathers outperform their peers in almost every category. So if you want to set your daughter up for success, be there, be active, be present. 3, your protection, not just physical, right? Because as men, the physical comes easy. That's nothing. Try me and see, right? The physical is easy, but it's the emotional, the spiritual, and the relational where we really have to learn how to lead with those elements of protection for our daughter. 4 is your approval, right? She needs to hear, I'm proud of you. Not that I'm proud of you for anything that you've accomplished or anything that you've done or the way that you look or whatever it may be, but just simply, I'm proud of you. 5 is your example. She studies you to understand how she deserves to be loved. She watches the way you interact with her mother. She watches the way that you interact with people out in the world in general. She studies you to understand how she deserves to be loved. And as you keep showing up for her, you start to see glimpses of who she's becoming. And those glimpses soften you in ways you can never explain. Now, every girl dad knows that moment when she climbs into your lap or reaches for your hand or falls asleep on your chest. In that moment, you'd give your life for that little girl because your love for her is a reflection of God's love for you. Remember that. Again, I'm going to say that again. Your love for her is a reflection of God's love for you. With all the mistakes that you've made, with everything wrong that you've ever done in your life, God loves you like you would never understand. And that's exactly the way that we're supposed to love our daughters and our children, but more specifically for this episode, our daughters. Doesn't matter what they do. Our love is always there for them. It's a reflection of God's love for you. And in moments like that, you realize something inside of you wants to speak to her future, her heart, her identity, her destiny. So I want to end this episode with something I believe every father should say to the daughter God placed in his care. And I'm going to take a breath because this one gets me emotional. So it's a letter to my daughter. My daughter, don't know where life will take you, but I do know this. You will never face it alone. From the moment I held you, God used you to change me, to grow me, to heal me, to make me a better man. You are loved without condition. You are cherished without effort. You are valuable without performance. You are chosen by God and by me. If the world tries to shrink you, I will lift you. If the world tries to silence you, I'll speak life over you. If the world tries to make you feel small, remember, you were created by a big God. And when the day comes that you don't need me anymore, I'll still be right here, praying for you, cheering for you, and thanking God for the privilege of being your father. I will fail at times, but I will never stop trying, and I will never stop loving you because I'm your dad on purpose forever. That was emotional, because it's true. And that's genuinely the way that I feel. So we're coming to the end of the episode here. And I just want to say a prayer for all the girl dads out there, just to kind of give us a little, I guess, a little bump, right? As we go into this next week. God, and then before I start, like I say always, if you're able to, just close your eyes, bow your head. If you're not, if you're driving, if you're in a position where you cannot close your eyes, that's okay, but still be here in the moment with us. God, thank you for entrusting me with this daughter. Give me the wisdom to guide her, the strength to protect her, the softness to comfort her, and the courage to lead her. Shape her identity, guard her heart, guide her future, and grow me into the father she deserves. In Jesus' mighty and glorious name, we pray. Amen. Dads, I want to remind you guys of something, and I've said it once and I'll say it again. You were not chosen by accident. Your daughter isn't an assignment. She's a blessing, and the world needs the woman she will become. So stay intentional, stay proud, stay in her corner, and again, be her dad, because that's all she really needs is just her dad. I want to thank you guys again for joining me today. Remember, your presence is powerful, your role is sacred, and God chose you for this calling. Fatherhood isn't easy, but it's holy work. Keep learning, keep loving, and keep leading your family in faith. Until next time, be dad on purpose. I'll see y'all next episode, everybody. Daddy up.